In the matter of completing the Rovere tomb, the fates were as much against the Duke of Urbino as against Michelangelo. On October 11th, 1534, the College of Cardinals elected Alessandro Farnese to the papacy. Farnese had been educated by Lorenzo, but he had already left the palace for Rome before Michelangelo's time. From Il Magnifico he had acquired a lifelong love of art and learning. When his ravishingly beautiful sister Julia had been taken by Pope Alexander VI as his mistress, Farnese had been made a cardinal and entered into the dissolute life of the Borgia court, siring 4 illegitimate children by 2 mistresses. Rome had satirically called him the petticoat cardinal, because he had received his appointment through his sister's position. However, in 1519, when he was ordained a priest, he renounced the pleasures of the flesh and began to live an exemplary life. Pope Paul III sent a courier to the house on the Macello dei Corvi. Would Michelangelo Buonarroti come to the Vatican Palace that afternoon? The Holy Father had something of importance to communicate. Michelangelo went to the baths in the Via de' Pastini, where a barber trimmed his beard, washed and brushed his hair forward over his brow, gazing at himself in the mirror of his bedroom. As Urbino helped him into a mustard-colored shirt and cloak, he noted with surprise that the amber flecks in his eyes were beginning to fade, and that the crushed declivity at the bridge of his nose no longer seemed so deep. "It's odd," he groused. "Now that it no longer matters to me, I'm not as plain as I used to be." "If you're not careful," said Urbino, observing the self-appraisal with a grin, "you'll grow to look like a Michelangelo sculpture." When Michelangelo entered the small throne room of the Vatican, he found Pope Paul III talking vivaciously to Ercole Gonzaga, Cardinal of Mantua, son of the cultivated Isabella d'Este, and a man of superb taste. Michelangelo knelt, kissed the Pope's ring, his eyes quickly sketching the new Pope's face. The narrow head, eyes incisively shrewd, the long, thin nose jutted over the snowy white mustache, the hollow cheeks and thin-lipped mouth, speaking of the voluptuary turned aesthete. It was a strong face. "My son, I consider it a good omen that you will be working in Rome during my pontificate." "Your Holiness is kind. It is a matter of self-interest. Several of my predecessors will be remembered largely because of the artworks they commissioned you to create." Michelangelo bowed humbly before the compliment. The Pope added warmly, "I wish you to enter our service." Michelangelo paused for the stonemason's rest count of 1, 2, 3, 4. "How can I serve your Holiness?" "By continuing our work at the Last Judgment." "Holy Father, I cannot take so large a commission." "Why not?" "I am bound by contract to the Duke of Urbino to complete Pope Julius' tomb. He had threatened me with disaster if I do not labor exclusively to that end. Is the Holy See to be intimidated by a warlord? Put the tomb out of your mind. I wish you to complete the Sistine Chapel for the glory of our pontificate." "Holy Father, for 30 years now I have been tortured for the sin of signing that contract." Paul rose on his throne, his slight body trembling under the bright red velvet ermine-trimmed cape. "It is 30 years for me. Also that I have desired to have you in my service. Now that I am Pope, I am not to be allowed to satisfy that desire." "Holiness, it is your 30 years against mine." With a fiery gesture, Paul pushed the red velvet skullcap back off his eyebrows and cried, "I am determined to have you serve me, come what may." Michelangelo kissed the Pope's ring, backed out of the small throne room. Returning to his house, he sank into an old leather chair. A sharp knock on the door straightened him up from his collapsed position. Urbino admitted 2 Swiss guards, tall blonde giants in identical yellow and green costumes, who announced that Michelangelo Buonarroti would receive the following mid-morning a visit from His Holiness Paul III. "I will find charwomen, messer," announced the imperturbable Urbino. "What refreshment does one serve the Holy Father and his train? I have never seen a pope before, except in procession." "I wish that was the only place I had ever seen one," grumbled Michelangelo. "Buy passito and biscotti, raisin wine and cookies. Use our best Florentine tablecloth." The Pope arrived with his cardinals and attendants, causing considerable excitement in the Piazza del Foro Traiano. Paul smiled benignly on Michelangelo, went quickly to Moses. The cardinals surrounded the figure in a field of red cassocks. It was obvious from the glance Pope Paul stole at Ercole Gonzaga that the Cardinal of Mantua was the acknowledged authority of the Vatican. Gonzaga drew back from the Moses, which, with his head cocked forward, eyes blazing with excitement, he declared in a voice compounded of awe, pride, and gratification, "This Moses alone is sufficient to do honor to Pope Julius. No man could want a more glorious monument." Pope Paul said wistfully, "Ercole, I wish I had said that." Then, turning to Michelangelo, he added, "You see, my son, I was not being unreasonable. Paint the Last Judgment for me. I will arrange for the Duke of Urbino to accept the Moses and these two captives from your hand." Michelangelo had not lived through 4 pontificates without learning when he was outmaneuvered.